Graham, hi.
Hi.
Want to tell us a little bit of, we don't know you so much as we know Lisa and Desdemona. You want to tell us a little bit about you and how you're involved in this project, and talk to us a little bit about the WIZ.
So the first thing you should know is I'm not Robert O'Hara, who's the director of the WIZ.
Excellent. Yeah.
Excellent director of the WIZ. I'm Graham Smith. I'm one of two of his assistant directors for this project. My involvement in the show as an assistant director, as you probably know, a musical has so many different layers to it. There's a music layer, there's a dance layer, and there's a book layer. And so just keeping track of all of those layers is something that kind of requires
Did you get to have one of those layers? Is that how it works?
No.
Okay,
no.
I see.
We're kind of keeping our eyes on all of them.
I see, all right.
And there are so many other technical aspects to keep your eyes on as well. It's just like how to get the singers water throughout Act 1 is a challenge because some of them never leave the stage. So
I know, who thinks about that, right? That's kind of interesting.
So I think The WIZ is, if any of you have seen The Wizard of Oz, I don't know how many of you have seen The Wizard of Oz. The WIZ is not The Wizard of Oz at all. It is a journey story about somebody discovering the importance of home by taking a journey. In the case of The WIZ, it's more of a trip than a journey. I think the aesthetic that Robert has worked with his designers to create on stage is something that I would call intergalactic Elizabethan queer realness. And to know what that means, I think you just have to come and take the trip. You have to see the show. But it's a familiar story that is universal in some ways, but is also very specific to the African American experience. And I think one of the things that is most special about this production, in addition to all of the terrific talents on stage, is, especially maybe for OSF, is just the amount and the level of energy of propulsive, kinetic dance choreographed by Byron Eastley is just gonna explode your brains. It's just so amazing.
How many people have seen The WIZ before? Just curious. Yeah, I thought that might be the case. So, what besides the description? Yes, what's different about this?
So I think probably the biggest difference, I don't know if people have seen the movie of The WIZ, which is nothing like the stage version of The WIZ, even outside of this production of The WIZ. The movie's really different. So maybe disregard your memory of the movie. The thing that Robert has done is to embrace the Shakespeare and the Elizabethan theater that it's set in. So if the story is about a young woman in Kansas who's dreaming of a way to escape her rather ordinary life, her preferred escape mechanism is Shakespeare. So you'll see her in the first scene carrying a large volume of Shakespeare, and her version of Oz is an Elizabethan world of Oz. So you'll see these details throughout the show, that she's really nodding toward the architecture of the theater. When the scarecrow comes out on a cross, you'll notice that it is probably a cross that you would expect to see in a Shakespeare play that might have been in prop storage for a while. So there are all these little nods to where her imagination takes her, and we really see, I think, the world of Oz through her mind's eye.
Yeah. It'd be fun to have sort of a checklist, right? See if you catch them, like, like Highlights magazine or something, right? You try to find all the hidden things, right?
We should do a contest.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We should have a contest. This is kind of fantastic, right? That's great. Anything about the orchestration different than anything that they did differently in terms of how many band members does it?
We've got 9 band members, and Kenny, who's done all of our orchestrations, has actually created some really exciting things for a nine-person orchestra. It sounds really terrific. I think you'll definitely notice a really full sounding experience in the theater.
Can you talk a little bit about what Kenny does as sort of music director on a musical? Because he does have some leeway to shape, yes?
Yes. I don't know all the ins and outs of his job, and I know that he's wearing several hats in this process.
Yeah,
because he's both the arranger and the copyist and the computer programmer, because a lot of our sound cues have a computer filter to them or a computerized aspect to them. So he's done all the programming. It's a big job to take a show that requires a full orchestra and shrink it to 9 and still make sure that you're having the
right, but that doesn't come to you. You don't order the 9-band version, right? You have to. You get the 35-piece orchestra version that you license, and then you say, "Oops, we're not doing that." So somebody has to do the
figure out what instruments can sound like what other instruments, and you know, if you're taking a 28-person orchestra, you have to figure out what instruments you can lose, what instruments you don't need to double, and how to replicate a sound that's really full with the limited instrumentation that you have. But it won't feel limited, I promise you. It sounds wonderful.
And how does it feel in the Elizabethan stage?
It's amazing, because one of the other aspects to it is that as you go into Oz, and I only realized this as we started working outdoors a few days ago, but you start in daylight and you're seeing what looks like a really ordinary Elizabethan theater. And as she goes deeper and deeper into Oz and it gets darker, Jeff Sugg, who's one of the country's leading projection designers, has created this living wallpaper that's projected onto all of the exterior surfaces of the Elizabethan stage in a way that is so trippy and so psychedelic and so beautiful that you will not think that you are in the normal Elizabethan theater that you know. It is going to kind of like turn it inside out for you, and it's very magical.
Right.
I've never seen projections anything like what Jeff has done.
Definitely not in Kansas anymore, right?
No.
Yes. Excellent, excellent. That sounds like a lot of fun. What has been the most, how am I going to put this, in a way, surprised you while you've been watching us develop this piece?
Well, the thing that's been most surprising, and this is going to sound really silly, at least I think it sounds really silly, is I know the story of the WIZ. And it's a simple story about a girl on a journey with 3 friends trying to figure out who she is and whether or not she really believes in herself enough to become an adult. It's this simple story which is manipulating my emotions in such direct, obvious ways. And all of a sudden, I'm so caught up and invested in this ridiculous story, and I'm crying and I'm laughing and I'm like, oh, I wish I had friends like the Scarecrow. So that's been the biggest surprise.
That you got taken.
That this story is so compelling in the hands of these artists.
Yeah.